Good morning. Thank you all for joining us today. Uh, Welcome relatives from across Indian country and beyond. If you're not familiar with NIHB, we serve all 574 federally recognized tribal nations, and we work alongside tribes to protect sovereignty, strength of tribal public health systems, support health and well-being of our people. So, over the next 2 days, I encourage us to do more than just listen. Let's sit together in this brave space to be honest about the challenges, share what is working, learn from one another. The, the answers to many of these issues we face already exist within us, in our communities, our culture, our elders, and our youth. The reality is that 1 in 4 American Indian Alaska Native high school students have seriously considered suicide. So that number really should stop us in our tracks. However, it's just a statistic. It's not our story. It doesn't have to be our future. Our story is strength of our people, the wisdom of our ancestors, and the leadership of our youth. It is the communities coming together and creating a healthier future for the next 7 generations. Each day across Indian country, tribal nations are restoring culture, strengthening connection, and showing that healing happens when communities lead. Our language matters, our teaching matters, our way of knowing matters. They are not additions to healing, they are what heals us. We hope this virtual gathering helps bridge the distance between us while we're strengthening our network of support and connection as a collective action across tribal communities. So with that said, if you haven't already, please put in the Zoom chat your name and where you're coming from. That really is our collective presence and our strength to really recognize who is with us today. I also want to again recognize our Tribal Youth Advisory Council, and we want to thank Tara Lynn, and again, we want to thank Joanne for helping shape this summit. It was really driven by the youth. Their voices, leadership, and vision are critical to this work. So as we spend the next 2 days together, I encourage you to carry the relationship, ideas, and inspiration from the summit back to your communities as we continue to work for healing, leadership, and wellness. So with that said, thank you for being here today. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Thank you for your spirit and presence and being a part of this movement. Welcome to the first virtual Behavioral Health Youth Summit.
Thank you so much, Lacey. I am just looking in our chat to see, and our attendee list to see if Dr. Segei is with us yet. So we're just going to give a moment to see if she has joined us. Maybe there's some technical issues. And I just wanted to provide a glance at the schedule as well. We will have a lunch break today where there will be an hour where you can get up, stretch, take care of yourself, feel your body. But Dr. Segei, are you in the room with us? Okay. I'm not seeing Dr. Segei, and for the purpose of time and moving things forward, I'm wondering if Adrian, if would be flexible and maybe switching times with Dr. Segei. Not to put him on the spot, but I feel like we're all really good in these spaces to adapt and step up. So I'm wondering, would you be willing to do that, Adrian?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right. And I'm going to ask our friend Dree to stop sharing so you can have the slides. And I will be on the lookout for Dr. Segei. Thank you so much for being flexible.
Well, it's a lot of smiley faces out there. Yeah, Abino, Chicago, Shadin, Adrian Salago, and she Twitch eating, Slippy Petoni. But she's chin totness on it, she Toban Shanella. Shema twin nest, is it that? Ruby Tassini, oh, there. 2013 hits on that's she's a Kisalago Jr. Oh yeah, a by the way, then I think the Hawada Sata could the Nench Uh, Good morning. My name is Adrian Salago, and I am Bitterwater, born for the Deerwater clan. And my mother is Ruby Ticini, originally from Tuba City, and my father's Key Salago Jr., and he's from Cedar Ridge. We call it the Botaway area. If you really get into it, he's from the second windmill up by Copper Mine. First thing I want to do today, and that's how I identify as a Navajo man. First thing I want to do today is acknowledge the committee. I want to acknowledge everybody that put this together. You know, it's a lot of work, and and I'm so grateful, and I just want to express some gratitude and thank you for allowing me to honor to come and sit with you guys. And I Chelsea, did you say you were going to bring up the the
Yeah.
PowerPoint?
Are you able to, or would you like me to?
Let's see. I could probably do it. Mm, Dang it, I wasn't prepared, but
I I know I threw something at you. That's okay.
that's all
Let
right.
me do it 1 second. We're
So,
just grateful to be in a space where people can be flexible.
so right now I'm up here at my sister's place up in Inscription House. As you can see in the back, all her beadwork and all her stuff's right there. If you need your eagle feather beaded, just so reach out. Just kidding. No, she's gonna get mad. But I'm on a project. I'm like seventh in the line for this turtle necklace I'm asking. I'm requesting. So I wanted to share, I just heard a couple of important words about, suicide and how it affects our relatives, especially the younger. Can y'all see that? Um, and how it affects, right now they say with the stats, they're talking about 18 to 24. The highest rate of suicide are American Indian males, and with these some of these new stats, they're talking about 10 to 24. And the numbers keep going lower. But as I continue with the slide, I will share a little bit more. This is through lived experience. I share a little bit about that with you. And as you can see, walking the path of a warrior,
Did
my
he get up to take his medicine? Tell him to get up. He could eat some cereal with the medicine. Two.
I can't hear Adrian.
Adrian, you're on mute.
I'm unmuted now.
There you
I
go.
was just saying that I would like some cereal too. Hey, I actually let me just pull up. I would like to do the slides here. Mm, Dang it.
I'd be happy to if you just tell me
All
when
right,
to
go
move
ahead.
to the
Yes,
next.
just go to the next slide, please.
Okay, you just tell me next, and I'm right here, and I will.
Okay, next, please. So, as what I have learned growing up at a really young age, we started to learn the mountain ranges. We started to learn the areas, of where our forefathers and our ancestors came through. Say they talk about, what the traditions of our people have been here for thousands and thousands of years, long before first contact. And so that right there, we call it Zithlachit. So Zith means mountain, and Lachit means red. So it kind of has a little reddish features. And then off to the back, on to the left, is the North Rim, We live 12 miles from the Grand Canyon, and this is the beautiful land where it's untouched. Um, in the Navajo way, we call that nut o zi, means strong tobacco. Next, please. Oh, dang, who's that? Hey, some resi guy. I throw this picture in here because let me tell you about that smile. When I was growing up, I became a victim of malicious gossip at a really young age, around 12 years old. And let me back it up. I want to share with you relatives that my clans, Bitterwater and Deerwater, are similar. They're the same. And so the elders at a young age, 6, 5, 7 years old, they would say, "Eshe chashat ah," you know, di hecht di gisishenle." They would say, "Are you stupid? Because your clans are the same." And they would shame me at a really young age. So at a really young age, I stopped identifying my clans, all four clans. So all I said is I was Bitterwater. I would say Twitch Eatney in Nishlin. They would say Haido. I say Aide Yashas Baz in the Hula. So I would, lie to them because I don't want to hear that negative feedback. So at a young age, we started, we talk about lateral violence. We talk about the shaming, the bullying, and the gossiping that goes on with the community, not only in the Indian community, but I'm telling you, it could be at the workplace. It could be with the blood family. It could be, at the chapter meeting. Hey, um, whichever chapter you're in within the tribal, with the at a business meeting in the evening time. Next slide, please. So here are some of the numbers, and as you relatives know, our no, numbers don't come until like 2 years later. We're in 2026, and some of the data from 2024 are just coming in. And that's just basically how it goes. And I want to let you all know here, family, that some of these intentional suicides and that let's say with an intentional overdose, or somebody running in front of a car, or somebody intentionally pulling a gun on a cop, those aren't even counted in the statistics. So, but I'm telling you, the people get as precise as they can. Next slide, please. I just wanted to give you some of the numbers here. So this doesn't only affect the adults, but I'm telling you, the signs for the 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 warnings we talk about from the youngsters. When I was 12 years old and I had suicide ideation, I never told my mom. I just told my mom that I didn't feel good. That's all I said because of the stigma that goes with suicide ideation, especially on the tribal lands. The cops are gonna get involved. I'm gonna go to jail. How long am I gonna be in jail? I'm gonna be in a mental hospital and everything you could think about. And all I told my mom is I don't feel good, and she says, "Well, there's aspirin on top of the fridge," like how mom does it. Um, the one I really want to talk about here is talking about being a burden to others. At a very young age, my self-esteem dropped to almost nothing, and that's how I moved about with my life. I was like a doormat. I was just a doormat. I let everybody walk all over me my whole life. Today, it's a lot different. Let me tell you this, relatives. This is amazing to sit here amongst you guys and to share and inspire hope. Who knows? Maybe there's a relative here in this circle that's struggling. And I always say it's struggling with self because it does begin with me. And I know, and through prayer, just like what the brother prayed about, to have my prayers constant to move about. I was reading the Elder of the Day, and hopefully I'll read it to you guys here in a minute. Let me know if I'm going overboard on the time too, please. Next slide, please.
I'm not able to view the slides. Is anyone sharing the screen or not?
The slides are being shared. If you please remain on mute and chat, our tech will support you. Thank you.
Is everybody else having the same issue?
No, I'm able to see.
Okay.
No.
No.
No. I can hear you.
Uh-oh.
No. I can see.
I can
Thank you,
see.
everyone. Thank you.
Okay. What Chelsea just said is if you just put in the chat, we'll let the IT take care of that. And thank you for your patience. Patience is a very strong spiritual principle that is practiced in the 12 steps. I'm a 12 stepper. I work with a sponsor. I do the program of Narcotics Anonymous, and this is why we're getting to the spiritual principle of resilience for the relatives that cannot see the screen. I came up with the definition of resilience. Resilience is a noun, and number one says the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, toughness. Two, the ability of a substance or object to spring back into shape, elasticity. Nylon is excellent in wearability and resilience. So the reason why I put up resilience is because I have continued to practice this despite what happened to me and what I'm going through and all the way up to today. Because let me tell you, through resilience, I'm able to be better grounded within myself and everybody around me. I with to our family members that are struggling with substance use disorder. The resilience comes into play once the individual makes a decision. I always say the acronym of GOT is the gift of desperation. I don't know if y'all heard that before. And then we also say that willingness is a gift. For me, I feel, it wasn't until I was at the state of desperation that I was able to try something new. My clean date is November 3rd, 2004. I went into detox on November 2nd, 2004, 9th Street and Harrison in San Francisco. And of course I got on the phone and called my counselor, Randy Shirley, and he's half Navajo, half Tlingit. And at the time in 2004, he had 10 years. And I asked him, I said, Randy, I want to come back to the rehab. And he asked me that famous question I heard my whole life. What are you going to do differently? And this time, without hesitating, I said, I'm going to get a sponsor. I'm going to go to meetings and I'm going to work steps. And there was like a silence. This is November 2nd, 2004. And there was like a silence. Felt like 10 minutes, but it was probably like 10 seconds. And Randy said, I will provide transportation. And let me tell you, that day is the first time I experienced the spiritual principle of hope. The not the hope that I get this big fast car or this big old giant house or this job that pays me six digits, but this is the hope that I might actually live, that I might actually have a better way of life. Mind you, that I was homeless for a while. For a lot of years, I was homeless. And next slide, please. So I went back to the Gatorade jug and I drank it, threw it up, drank it, threw it up. And November 5th, they picked me up and I went back to the place where I just recently graduated from. Show of hands of who's familiar with lateral violence. Show of hearts. Unfortunately, lateral violence in Native American communities referred to a harmful behavior such as bullying, gossiping, shaming, and undermining that member of a marginal group direct towards each other rather than towards the dominant group or external oppressors. It is often described as horizontal hostility. That is another common word too, horizontal hostility, and is seen as a symptom of historical trauma, colonization, forced assimilation, boarding school, systematic oppression instead of confronting the structure that created the harm. The unresolved anger and grief and trauma may get redirected laterally within the community itself. I want to share with the younger relatives here, all our younger warriors. First of all, I want to say thank you for coming and joining us. When I was younger, when I was about 11, 12, 10, even 13 years old, it was rare that they had events like this. So I want to say thank you. Even if you didn't want to come, your mom said, go to that, or grandma said, go to that. Um, I want to share with you that you younger relatives are going to be you're going to become our leaders here. You're going to be the one doing what Chelsea's doing right now. You're going to be up here doing what we need, which is what is much needed. So when we got to this lateral violence here, they say it started with first contact. Who knows what BC means, right? Not the before Columbus. Hey, it's before. I mean, not before Christ. It's before Columbus. Sorry. So, we talk about colonization, the forced assimilation, what happened with people trying to bring their type of way of life into our world. In the Navajo way, we call those people the Etna Shandi, and that's what the people that dragged her close. And I don't really want to go into detail about that, but it is somebody. I think they're talking about not reading the not able to view the slide again. And so with that being said, the intergenerational trauma. My brother that I run around with, he has become a real brother. His name's Mike Duncan out of Native Dads Network. He always talks about the intergenerational trauma, but he said now we need to focus on the intergenerational healing. And that's what we got going on right here. That's what we got going on today. Because the boarding schools of what happened and then how they stole the land and then how they practiced genocide on our land. A lot of the stories that they talked where they wiped out like a whole community of our people. So, with that being said, some of the teachings that would be focused like with me as I was growing up, but it wasn't until I was 32 that I got clean that, I was able to start to learn and get back into the medicine, and so with that being said, I want to move on to the forms of what it takes, which is the gossiping, spreading rumors, the exclusions. I'm familiar with exclusions. When we as an individual in recovery, uh, or even not in recovery, to establish a boundary, to establish healthy boundaries, then all of a sudden I'm the bad guy. And that's where a lot of the shaming comes from. The bullying and intimidation. When I got bullied in school, I today it's good. Dang it. Somebody said they're having a hard hearing me. How about now? Hey, um, let me see here.
I think
So,
that's their system. You sound great.
okay, I could sing to you. Hey, next slide, please. Little more focusing on the bullying. I'm going to tell you the bully on occasions, the bully doesn't know that they're bullying, or they think that it's okay and it's a regular way of life. Bullying is repeated, intentional behaviors that hurt, intimidate, and control another person. It usually involves in power, imbalance, physical strength, popularity, age, status, or access to embarrassing information. And then we also talk about the financial status. Some of these people that are, having a better way of life would be, unfortunately talking down to other people, that are just trying to have a good life. I want to tell you, relatives, I believe everybody in this circle here is just trying to have a good day, correct? Is there anybody, a show of hearts if I'm correct on that one? Oh God, thank you. Thank you. This gets me emotional. I'm trying not to cry, I'm telling you. I when I was in fifth grade, I I got chased out of the gym because I wasn't big enough. And I'm gonna tell you this, in early recovery or even in my 20s, I would never, ever, ever tell somebody this stuff. But today, it just doesn't matter. And that's a direct result of doing some work. The physical bullying, you know, uh, taking the lunch money. I grew up in Tuba City, so we had the snack bar right there by the hospital. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. And then the verbal bullying. And then the social bullying is unfortunate, and that runs everywhere. Like I'm in a 12-step program and the gossip is going. Cyberbullying. I have not yet, the famous yet, right? I have not experienced the cyberbullying because usually I just move on and move forward and I do not participate in, next slide please, in any type of that, type of ways and behaviors. Malicious gossip. For me, I have experienced malicious gossip at 12 years old, and that's what started my suicide ideations, my suicidal thoughts, my suicidal tendencies. And so, the malicious gossip is the act of spreading rumors or sharing private information about someone with the intent to harm their reputation, relationships, or emotional well-being. Let me tell you, relatives, that there are people, unfortunately, that would spread gossip just so they can get a better job, or and I don't want to go too much of that, but let me say the social on the last slide it was talking about social acceptability, to actually be a part of. And let me tell you, when I experienced what happened in the gym when I was in fifth grade, one of my friends that I was running around with actually was involved in humiliating me. And you talk about a sense of betrayal. So I have a brother named Steven Sawyer. Some of you guys are probably probably know the people that I'm talking about. Steve does the a couple of these programs, and I sat in and I relived the betrayal, and I didn't know that it was so heavy on my head and in my heart that that's when we started working on that again. So, with the malicious gossip, I just want to let you know, all I'm doing is sharing a little bit of information to let the people know. There might be people in this circle that is doing this, and yet they don't even know. Let me tell you the part about teasing, like sharing with another individual, like at the work site or at a meeting, and they would be, just like teasing, say, "No, I'm just joking." No, they're not. So the effects of malicious gossip: emotional distress, broken friendships, workplace conflicts, loss of trust, social isolation. And that does also move it. Next slide, please. That also does move into, the suicide ideations and the suicidal, thoughts. And I am, mind you, family, that I am a gatekeeper in the QPR. I'm also trained in the assist. There's one coming up actually in Phoenix, Arizona. If you need that information, get with me. So abstracts for the younger relatives. The prevalence of pediatric suicide ideation and deaths by suicide continue to rise with the rise of suicide now representing the second leading cause of death for those ages from 10 to 24. Like I said, the numbers are going down. To decrease the number of children experience suicide ideations or death by suicide, we must improve suicide risk screening and access mental health care, as well as continue to seek novel treatment modalities. Efforts are underway to address each of these objectives. This article will detail current research pertaining to the prevalence of suicide ideation and death by suicide, the implementations of universal suicide risk screening, and data supporting ongoing treatment innovation. Back in 1990, I said I don't feel good. I said I was gonna, do something bad. I went to the hospital. The doctor at the hospital said, "Here, take these pills. Call me in 3 days. I mean, call me in 90 days. I mean, sorry." And that is like the act of a social determinant of health. Some of your relatives here are probably familiar with that, because unfortunately it happens in a lot of minority communities such as ours, the Black community and, our Hispanic community, and now I was sharing with, where was I forgot. I don't know. I've been sharing a couple, I've been around, hey, and, I've been sharing with some other people that today, the help is a lot better, especially with events like this, and just having more resources, like to go to a group, the 988, and even with my number that's available. Next slide, please. Goal number 5 is the one I like. Take your time and read it, please. Number 5, the reason why number 5 is my favorite is to integrate suicide prevention into the community of the workplace and into other community settings. That's powerful. So to have, more information, to have when the suicidal thoughts, they say that I want to share a little story with you. We have a couple of minutes. We're almost at the end here. I was in rehab in San Francisco, and in the morning we have a big group meeting with all the staff and all the residents. And that morning, Randy Shirley said, "We're going to Grand Canyon today." He's all rezzed out too, so we're going to Grand Canyon today. He just kidding. No, he didn't say it like that. But and he says, "Raise your hand if you want to go." And everybody raised their hand. He says, "Nope, you're on restriction. Nope, you can't go. No, you missed your appointment." So half of us went to the Grand Canyon. But sitting at the on my chair in that group, I made a decision. I made that decision I was gonna jump off the Grand Canyon. I mean, not the Grand Canyon, but the Golden Gate Bridge. And do I keep saying Grand Canyon? I'm right around the corner. The Golden Gate Bridge. And when we got there, everybody got out. All the athletes are already running across to the other side. And I'm standing there and I was smoking a cigarette. My nicotine clean date's February 3rd, 2014. And talk about a struggle. Woo, that was worse than getting off the alcohol, and I waited for everybody to go. And there was a couple of guys, the no good ones were right behind me still there. And so I started walking, and I got to the first area, and there was still ground. And then I walked a little bit more, and I got almost to the middle, and I looked over the side, and I said, "This is the spot." And as I'm walking, I see those red phones that say, "If you're struggling with suicide, you call this number." I had no intention of picking up that phone, and I looked over, and I was like, "Oh God." There was a fence down there, and I got so upset. And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna hurt myself, trying to kill myself." That's what I was thinking. And and my mind is racing. Um, I said, if If I jump and I land on that fence, I'll be able to roll off and jump again and fall. And so I then I thought, what if I'm paralyzed for the rest of my life? And then right when I was thinking all these thoughts, the no good one that was behind me slapped me on my back and said, "Keep moving." And so relatives, that was 21 years ago. To be in that state of mind to where I'm at today. Next slide, please. To be in to where I'm at today is I'm telling you, it's Creator. You know, they say in the second step we made a decision. Then the third step, you know, is no oh, sorry, I'm the second step is we came to believe. Then the third step says we made a decision. The 12 steps for me is very effective, and I usually stress upon it a lot with my sponsees, with the relatives. My sponsee brother, or my sponsee called me this morning. I think he's on here. Say hi to Lance. Where are you at, Lance? I think he's on here. But anyways, I'm calling him out, and he's doing well, kinda. Hey. But anyways, so this is some new stats right here, relatives. You know, like in chapter 7, in the basic text of Narcotics Anonymous, it talks about relapse and recovery. It talks about the disease of how my mindset is. And then towards the middle of the chapter, it starts talking about the hope, you know, of how it's going to be or what's going to happen. Or, you know, in Narcotics Anonymous, we only offer one promise, and that's freedom from active addiction. And this is great news. It says new reports show that the prevalence of serious suicidal thoughts in 12 to 17-year-olds fell from nearly 13% in 21 to 10% in 24. And the prevalence of suicide attempts by teens also fell slightly from 3.6% to 2.7%. And I feel one of the main things that contribute to the less suicide attempts is knowledge. It's knowledge. Next slide, please. It's about getting out in the community and starting to listen to how others do it. And my brother, Stephen Sawyer, helped me with this one because I believe this is where we inspire hope. Because to inspire hope, you know, is like there's a better way. You know, there's a better way, and these are not even for the people that are not in addiction too. People that are not in active addiction, or people we call it the normies. Hey, and this is, let me tell you about my sister. She applied the 12 steps in parenting. I hope she's not on here. Hey, she knows. But anyways, admitted that I'm powerless over my daughter and that my life has become unmanageable. Hey. So, whatever, like in the Fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous, we talk about the disease of addiction. It's not just about, you know, the fentanyl or the meth or, you know, the alcohol. You know, we're talking about like gambling and Amazon, and you know, shopping and food. They say you put down the spoon and you pick up the fork. If you don't know that what that means, give me a call. So, key things I learned about self-forgiveness. God dang it. It took me a lot of years. My first ninth step in 2005, I was finally able to come to have a better relationship with myself. I learned it's okay to express my feelings. You know, today it doesn't matter. There's tears gonna fall from my eyes or not. I don't know. But all I can say is that the healing process has begun and it continues to progress. I learned that staying positive helps me daily. I learned about the meaning of hope, which I just shared about hope. The acronym for hope is hold on, pain ends. Hey, that's it right there. Hold on, pain ends. I learned that I'm no burden to others. I notice when I'm living my life, my daily life, people are, you know, say, "Oh, I apologize," or I'm right, you know, I'm sorry, and I was like, everything's all good, and I remember being that person, you know, and today I just realized that I am a human being, just like some of the teachings of John Trudell. He talks about how he just wanted to be a human being. I've been doing a lot of readings on our leaders of the past too, even up to today. Um, and let me tell you, some of these teachings that I would hear in the 60s is what we're talking about today, and it's beautiful. And the last thing is I learned the importance of helping others. It's the spiritual principle of step 12 in a 12-step process, in a 12-step program, is service, to give back. There's a guy, his name's Eddie, and he was on the podium, and he was saying, if you're not doing any service in Narcotics Anonymous, you're stealing from Narcotics Anonymous. And I thought he was looking right at me, and everybody left the room. Hey, but that's how it felt, though. But that's a little bit of my self-centeredness. In page 55 in the basic text of Narcotics Anonymous, it does state that self-obsession is the core of my disease. So everything that, is about me and how I want it and how quickly I'm going to get it. But today it's not like that. Today it's more like helping the others, like helping the other people that, that want to try something different. Next slide, please. Oh, dang it. Can you bring up this video, please? Sorry. I put her to work.
I will do my best. And we have a couple more minutes until we can
Yeah,
take maybe a
we're
couple
about done.
questions.
Yes.
So I just want to say, if you guys have questions, please put them in the chat and we will get to them. All right,
All right.
hopefully you guys can hear this.
Nope.
7 generations ago,
There it is.
you were already imagined. Your place in this universe was already foreseen. Across those generations, the message has come unchanged. Your time here is sacred. Your life is the legacy of those who came before. Your spirit is strong because they were strong. Your presence is proof of that. You are on the path of 7 generations past and 7 yet to come. Your spirit has seen truth and consequence. It has seen the light of life's joy and the weight of its pain. Sometimes that weight is heavy. Sometimes that weight is more than one can bear alone. But you are not alone. Of that I am sure. If you are contemplating suicide or know someone who is, know that you are not alone. Reach out. There is help. There is someone to talk to.
To talk to someone or to help someone you know, call or live chat the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Call 1-800-273-TALK.
Thank you. Real quick, I would like to share about that. Life and active addiction when I was getting loaded and when I was using drugs and alcohol, everything on that video I did not do. How they're playing ball, how they're out in the country, how the guy on the mountain bike, that was all foreign to me because all I wanted to do was get what I want and to get it right now. And so now to have the opportunity to, to come out and I like hiking. I love fishing. I love Scrabble. I used to have Scrabble parties every Wednesday right before COVID. 2017 to 2020, I had Scrabble night every Wednesday. And I was the cook. Shake and bake. Hey. But anyways, so yeah, if you have any questions, you could put it in the chat. I'll be glad to answer them. Yeah, that's fine. You could leave that information, my information up. Why are tribal nations so afraid to innovate and so resilient on the Western system, not building them? Let me tell you, what I have learned traveling across Turtle Island is that the communities are getting more and more involved as the years go by. And that's fortunate. Back in the 80s and the 90s, as you know, that it was like a taboo to even talk about it. And when somebody goes home, when somebody leaves, it's just like swept under the rug. And so now, Ken House. I feel that it's coming back. The Western teachings, I believe that all teachings are good because to get into the medicine, to get into the lodge, talking circles, um, healing ceremonies, the NAC, whichever you prefer. For me, I have been practicing the Navajo way. Tashina, yeah, she don't need beautiful and strong presentation. I love your humor, blending that. Shan, keda, nanala has tina shin hula. Ankon do nido, ado ene, ado, yet lane, edo business shit, yeah. Uncle she don't need. Nasto, Chanel, Bennett de, edo but death neither. I was just sharing about how grandma would tell me that don't do that. She just said, "Well, don't do that," and don't drink and all that. And then it went from that to just leave him alone. It doesn't matter to him, So today it's a beautiful day. This is my information. If you want to reach out, if you're seeking recovery, I know a lot of places across Turtle Island. I am my home group is Without Reservations, Group of Narcotics Anonymous. We meet every Sunday, 4212 North 16th Street at the Phoenix Indian Medical Center. I will be there. I will not be there on Sunday. Hey, don't tell anybody, but I'm gonna miss it again. But it says, do you have advice for helping young men feeling comfortable reaching out for support? I went through that. Autumn. It starts with one person. I forgot to share on that. I think I went overboard now. It starts with one person. You ask your family member to just find somebody you can confide in. One turns to two, two turns to three. Next thing you know that your relative is going to be on a panel sharing their experience, strength, and hope. And that's what happened with me. And yeah, let me know, Chelsea, what we got going on.
Yeah, I see one question. It says, can you give examples of ways to integrate suicide prevention into workplace cultures?
Well, let me tell you what I am doing. Starting groups, talking circles. We had the first annual Healing and Wellness Gathering in Tuba City, December 12th last year. This year is the second annual, December 11th through the 13th. We're bringing the Sacred Hoop down from Don Coyas. Don Coyas might be coming, um, and to just get into action. I remember I moved to Tuba City and I told my sponsor, there's no NA meetings here. You know what he said? We'll start one. Like he almost hung up on me right with that. Yeah, but I'm telling you, it says to get it. They told me to get into action. So now to have QPR trainings in different locations, especially remote locations, to have assists, teachings, and then from then on to start groups, just even local groups. You can go to the church, you can go to the library, you can go, even to some of the restaurants and just to ask. And it starts with the individual. That's what they told me. Yes, and thank you. Like I said, call me. Let's get something going. I'm ready. My war pony, my little Hyundai's outside, ready to rock. Hey. But it was a good one. Oh, I see Tashina in here. Rezi. Hey. Oh, those two Tashinas. But Tashina Boyer, I've known her since way back San Francisco days. And it's a beautiful day. And then Tina's here, and I want to introduce you guys to Tina Billy. She does a lot in the community. And thank you everybody here. I see a lot of people saying thank you. I'm gonna tell you guys, it's just amazing where I'm at today. I um I'm headed out to the Jicarilla Apache Nation, and I'm speaking at a youth conference on Thursday tomorrow. And then I'm coming back, and then I will be in Carlsbad, um California next Thursday, and I'm speaking out there. And it's a beautiful day. And then the following Monday, I will be speaking in Tuba City. So let me know what you think. You can email me. You can call me. You need me to come out? Dang it, I'm ready. I am ready because it's like hopefully everything went well with Chelsea. Chelsea's a rock star. We had a little Zoom yesterday, and thank you so much for your resilience, your perseverance, and
Thank you so much, Adrian. I just sat here listening to you thinking, gosh, this is a beautiful way to start my morning because
Mm.
I'm on Pacific Standard Time. So it's not, afternoon for me. So being able to start my day, in this space with you all is just meant a lot. The humor, the language, all of it. I see a lot of smiling faces. So I just appreciate what you brought to the space today, and I hope you have safe travels. And when we send out all of the post-session materials, you'll have some information to contact Adrian directly if you need, or if you need me to loop you together, I'm happy to do that. But at this time, send some more thanks and love to Adrian in the chat. We're going to transition a little bit to our next presenter. I'm going to allow one of our Tribal Youth Advisory Council members, Joanne, to introduce our next speaker. And at this point, I don't think our next speaker needs a slideshow. I think it's all verbal, but if anything has changed, I'm here to support. So thank you again, Adrian. I hope you have such a blessed day.
No, thank you.
All right, thank you, Chelsea. Hi, everyone. My name is Joanne Ben, and I am honored to introduce our next speaker. So our next speaker is Dr. Gloria Linda Segei, who is the Director of the Division of Behavioral Health for the Indian Health Service. So a Diné public leader and advocate, Dr. Segei has dedicated her career to strengthening behavioral health systems, suicide prevention efforts, and culturally grounded care across Indian country.
Much. Thank you very much. Can you confirm you can hear and see me?
Yes.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you. Yate bene and yate isn't. So I greet each and every one of you today. Good morning. Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me here to provide a keynote speech during the virtual Behavioral Health Youth Summit meeting. So I appreciate National Indian Health Board, the Tribal Youth Advisory Council, tribal leaders, behavioral health professional, community advocates, and most importantly, the youth who are joining us today. So it really, truly is an honor to be here with each and every one of you. So before I begin, I want to acknowledge the strength, resilience, and the leadership that exists in our tribal communities. I also want to acknowledge our ancestors who taught us the importance of family, community, culture, and caring for one another. Today, I want to be able to talk about behavioral health, substance use prevention, as well as healing, and then the critical role of our youth today that shape the future of Indian country. When we talk about behavioral health, as Mr. Salago earlier had touched upon during his presentation, we're not just talking about mental health services or treatment programs, we're talking about our relationships, families, communities, identity, about hope. And Mr. Salago also touched up on a lot of good examples there in his presentation earlier. And behavioral health includes our emotional, mental, and spiritual wellness, along with our ability to cope with life's challenges. And it's really good to hear again from Mr. Salago that, he pretty much indicated that he's happy, his life is beautiful, and that he had to take some work to be able to get to the capacity he is at. So he's not the only one like that. There's a lot of us in this room that pretty much are trying to get to that same place there. So for many of our youth, those challenges are significant. Many young people, again, are experiencing anxiety, depression, grief, trauma, substance use, and also feelings of isolation. So these challenges, they do affect every tribal community in some way. But I want everyone listening today to know something important. So although these challenges are there, I want you to know that they do not define who you are. Your future is not determined by your struggles. Your future is determined by your strength, your resiliency, your community, and also, most importantly, your willingness to keep moving forward. One of the things I have learned is that healing does not happen in isolation. Healing happens through connection, through culture, and when young people know they belong, they heal. So long before there were any kind of behavioral health programs, our tribal communities had systems of wellness. We had our languages, we had our ceremonies, we have our beloved elders. There's the stories, there's the songs, and there's the teachings. Again, just want to defer back to Mr. Salago earlier. He had very great examples of those items. And so, again, for many of us, culture is healing. So those things are not separate from behavioral health. They are behavioral health. And so again, culture is prevention, culture is healing, culture is resilience. So when youth know who they are, where they come from, and that they belong, they are stronger. When youth are connected to their families and communities, they are stronger. When youth have opportunities to learn, grow, and lead, they are stronger. I also want to touch up about substance use prevention. So substance meaning marijuana, alcohol, wine, beer, etc. So too often prevention is defined by what we want young people to avoid. Basically telling them, no, you don't do that. They have prevention education, differently across various tribes to deter people from going into substance use prevention. So, but prevention is much more than that. Prevention is always about creating opportunities, creating hope, and developing positive pathways. And again, Mr. Salago, a wonderful example. The question was posed, do you help youth? And so that's where he's making the opportunity. He's creating hope there, and he's developing positive pathways. So youth need opportunities to participate in sports, arts, cultural activities, even language programs, leadership programs, community events. Youth need mentors. They need positive role models and people who believe in them. So young people need to say yes to. When communities invest in youth, the youth will thrive. When you thrive, the community thrives. It works hand in hand there. So I do want to spend a few minutes in talking about technology. So I know technology is used widely out there throughout the United States, including tribal communities. And, it can be intimidating. It can be, discouraging to try to, advance into technology. But I want to touch up on how it can support healing. So, of course, when people hear the word technology, they think about apps. We think about iPhones or Galaxy phones. We think about iPads or social media. But what I want to talk about today is something that's different. So, I just wanted to touch up and generally talk about culturally grounded behavioral health applications. So, these are tools that use technology to support wellness while remaining rooted into your tribal culture, your language, your values, and community connections. So, a culturally ground application is not meant to replace families, not meant to replace elders or counselors or traditional ways of healing. Instead, it's meant to strengthen the connections and extend support beyond the clinic, beyond the schools, or beyond the treatment programs. So imagine you have a young person having access to traditional teachings, their tribal languages, wellness activities, recovery support, positive messages, connections to trusted adult, behavioral health resources, crisis support when needed, all through a tool that reflects their community and culture. So this is what culturally grounded behavioral health applications can help accomplish. These tools can support youth who may live in a remote community, who may have limited access to service, or who need support between appointments. And so, like Mr. Salago had indicated, it is hard to tap into services. It is intimidating to tap into services. Sometimes you don't even know how to tap into services. So most importantly, they can help, keep the youth connected again, and I will continue to emphasize culture, community, recovery, and hope. So I also want to emphasize that technology should never replace relationships, but instead be used to strengthen relationships. When technology is designed by and for Indigenous communities, tribal communities, it can become another tool that supports healing and wellness. Another important message I want to share today is that asking for help is a sign of strength. There's no shame, and I'm going to repeat that, there's no shame in reaching out for support, talking to a counselor, participating in recovery, or telling someone that you are struggling. There's no shame in that. And I know that a lot of people are concerned about judgment. They're concerned that what will they think of me? What will they say about me? What will the gossip be, as Mr. Salago had indicated? All of that doesn't matter when it comes to your well-being. So asking for help. It's as easy as asking for help when you're trying to move a big bed for grandma. The bed's too heavy, so you go get your cousin and you say, hey, cousin, let's go move the bed. And then you move the bed and get the task done. So it's similar to that, asking for help. Some of the strongest people I know are people who actually ask for help when they needed it. I have a good friend of mine living in the dumps, eating out of the dumpster, and was hooked on heroin and alcohol, and basically just had no hope at all for recovery. But guess what? He asked for help. He did the work. And he's one of the strongest persons that I have known that has demonstrated asking for help in the outcomes of, when he asks for help. So I do want to let you know that recovery is possible. Healing is possible. Hope is possible. And for our youth today, I want to speak directly to you. Sha'alchina sha'awe, as we say in Navajo way, my children, my babies, my young ones. You are not the leaders of tomorrow. In fact, you are already our leaders today. The council that is here, they're our leaders. Your voice, your ideas, and your experience matters. Your communities need your leadership. And I just want to say, do not underestimate the impact that you have, whether you become a teacher, a counselor, a healthcare provider, a tribal leader, an artist, a parent, or an advocate. You still have the abilities to make a difference. Your generation is helping shape the future of Indian country. And that future is bright. So as we look ahead, I see tremendous opportunities. I see stronger behavioral health systems and expanded prevention programs. I see greater access to care. I see youth leading changes within their communities. I see tribal communities continuing to build on their strength and traditions. And most of all, which makes my heart happy, most importantly, is I see hope. So the future of Indian country depends on healthy youth, strong families, a connected community, and I know that together we can continue building that future. I will close with this. So healing happens again through culture, connection, community, and when we believe in one another. So I'm very grateful, and I want to thank you for everything you are doing to support Native youth. Thank you for your leadership, your resilience, and for allowing me to be here. And I just want to wish you all a happy summit, and wanted to also take the time to introduce myself. Gloria Linda Segei, in shadow a kintlitsoni tsanji kinin shlon twitch ini bashish chin ado honagani dashanala dot kobahan dashiche. So my introduction to my kinfolk in my own Navajo language, and also want to let my non-native relatives know I am a Navajo enrolled member, and I do come from the Navajo Nation. I was born and raised there, and so I do have my experience living on the res, as we say, and I'm very grateful for all those experiences there. And I also want to take this opportunity for land acknowledgement. And so I'm on the East Coast. And so on the East Coast, there are various tribes here that I've learned about. And I have learned about their ways and how they do things, as far as on the East Coast. So land acknowledgement to the tribes here for allowing us to be here. And of course, the water, the sky, the sun, the moon, the stars, and the earth and the fire. So that concludes my part of my keynote address to you all, and I'll pause there if there are any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Segei. We have plenty of time if folks want to drop a question in the chat or make comments. Give it a couple more minutes. It looks like we will be taking an early lunch, but I think we can all appreciate a little extra time to stretch our legs and take care of ourselves. I am going to, in the chat, post a survey. If you are unable to spend the rest of today with us for any reason, we would encourage you to fill out a survey, but again, we will also return at 2 p.m. Eastern time, and the survey just helps us learn more about what we want to provide in terms of education and gatherings, and what kind of spaces tribes and folks want to be a part of. So we ask that you fill that out. Janet has a question for Dr. Segei. When an individual wants to get help but has only to return to their family with the initial issues, what do they do?
Thank you for the question. Ms. Deschini, if you could elaborate a little bit on your question, I just want to make sure my read is appropriate.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
What I've been experiencing when we go to I'm sorry, I'm all emotional. When we do health information or even work with the youth, a lot of them, they have family members older that have issues, but then they don't want to go back home because they know that the issues are still at home. Whatever those issues, whether it's substance abuse, suicide ideation, or just not a lot of support. And so they always wonder, like, what do I do? Where do I go? Mm-hmm. And there's only limited capabilities, I'm pretty sure, not only on Navajo, because that's where I work and live and I'm from, but like there's the same issues that I've kind of heard through other tribal lands. So I'm just wondering, what do you suggest for that?
And thank you for the question. Thank you for elaborating there too. So a lot of times, just from my experience on Navajo, we do get a lot of people, not just the youth, but in general, everyone who is trying to practice a healthy lifestyle, and that they have to return back to, their family, their home, in which there is a lot of issues, domestic violence, substance, incest, all of that is happening there. And so you are right. There's a lot of people who get in those types of situation and really don't know what to do or where to go. And a lot of times, there's more challenges when they come back, sober, wanting a healthy lifestyle. There's that bullying that could happen, like Mr. Salago had touched on. You're too good for us now. You think you're better than us. That starts. So those are added challenges after the fact. So really, my guidance is look at the resources we have, and I'm sure you already have Ms. Dace Cheatney. And so there's a lot of different resources out there, social services. I know there's youth homes, there's youth regional treatment centers, there's adult treatment centers. It's just really tapping into resources, not only locally, but you can look at it at a nation spectrum. And so we have a lot of youth regional treatment centers here within IHS. And so there's 13 that we have that are located across the US. So we do operate 7 federally, and then the rest are operated through the tribes there. And then we also have 1 adult drug dependency unit. So it's just really, I would say, familiarize yourself with the resources. And I know that's not um, a quick fix, but that pretty much would be my suggestion is, let's look at the resources, see what can happen. And not only that, but a lot of networking, just emailing people like right here on this call. There's a lot of connection and networking that can happen, to see what resources they have in their community. So it's just word by mouth, as far as what's available and what works. And then also one of the other one is personal stories. I know that in a lot of our native ways, we tell a story about our struggles, and then we get to the point about this is how I got help, just like Mr. Salago had done earlier. So that would be my suggestion, is just really tap into your resources, really get social services involved. What are the options? I think they probably have more of a chance of being placed in a healthy environment if they haven't aged out. But then it gets different when the children age out. Then the parameters present itself, and then there's more limitation. But I just appreciate what you do there on Navajo for the youth and there in the community, ma'am. And I also see a lot of great suggestions in the chat. So I do see Al-Anon program, behavioral health services there on Navajo. And also the 988 is also an option. And it looks like youth placement as well. And then looking at even as far as going to your insurance and looking at providers there. So again, thank you everyone for the wonderful list there of potential resources that could be used. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for the question, and thank you, Dr. Segei. All right, at this time, I am going to stop recording. I want to give opportunity. I know we're closing for lunch about a half an hour earlier than planned. And so once I stop recording, I would like to create a space where if you are here and you have the time and you want to maybe share out a couple of things that your youth programming is working on, or if you're youth and you want to share a little bit about some successes that you've experienced in this space, I want to make space for that. This is not in the agenda, but I feel like based on the activity in the chat and some of the things we talked about, it would be good to just have a quick share out. But I also want to respect maybe personal stories or things that may not want to be shared in such a public setting in terms of a recording. So I am going to pause that for now. We will resume recording after lunch. All right, welcome everyone. Thank you. Thank you to Dree, our tech support. We're just gonna wait just a second while I admit some more folks coming in. I hope your lunch was amazing. I hope you took some time to rest and filled up your water bottle. So I'm just gonna ask Dree to stop sharing, and we are gonna dive into our next presenter. Let's see here. Okay, I see Anna Fetter. Hello. Okay, so I want to introduce our next presenter is Dr. Anna Fetter of the St. Regis Mohawk Tribe. She's a licensed psychologist and assistant professor at Duke University. She works for Duke University in the School of Medicine, and her work centers on Indigenous mental health, youth wellness, culturally responsive behavioral health, and approaches, and also supporting the sustainable community healing. So at this time, I'm going to go on mute and allow Anna to share her screen. And thank you for being here today.
Yahweh, thank you so much. Let me get the slides going. Can you see all right, Chelsea? Okay, beautiful. Well, Seiko, thank you again for the warm welcome. Hopefully I won't put you asleep after your lunch hour, but if I do, then I'm assuming that's what you needed, so maybe that's good. Anon Ganuisu, Nyun Good Sanungwe, Akwesasni Nolun. So my name is Anna Ganuisu Fetter. I'm a member of the St. Regis Mohawk Tribe, originally from upstate New York. I think that's an important part of the lens that I bring to today. I'm also a licensed psychologist and I do clinical practice for part of my time, which is the office I'm in right now. So I think that clinical practice is also part of the lens I bring. And then I also lead the Frame Lab at Duke, and our research seeks to advance mental health equity among Native youth and emerging adults, using critical and culturally grounded frameworks, particularly in educational settings. So I think that will be apparent in the conversation today. But this afternoon, or as Chelsea pointed out this morning, if you're in Alaska, I'm excited to be able to share with you all a little bit about our recent project, which is a culturally grounded, community-partnered approach to scale development and psychometric testing of a new measure of Native-specific experiences of microaggressions. So this study is part of a larger project called the For Our Futures study, which is funded with support from the Spencer Foundation and which just completed data collection this spring. And our objective was to address the critical gaps in understanding mental health disparities among Native college students, and to do so to be able to better support and promote Native college student mental health through practice, policy, and intervention. And to do this, I assembled a phenomenal 10-person community research team. Those team members are 5 undergraduate Native students from different schools across the country, and then 5 staff and faculty whose roles primarily involve supporting Native college students, also from different institutions across the country. And so this gave us some diversity of our perspectives and being able to bring our different lived experiences into the research. And we've been really explicit in grounding our research in our Indigenous research values of respect, relationship, relevance, reciprocity, responsibility, and representation. And we've been working together for, I guess, 15 months now to develop a cross-sectional national survey that would capture cultural stressors, mental health outcomes, academic information, as well as cultural resources, and personal, social, tribal, and institutional supports for Native college students. And given that our particular aim in this study was to better understand mental health among Native emerging adults, we knew it was really important to us that our survey includes stressors that we knew matter to Native college students, which included microaggressions. So what are microaggressions? I feel like they were a little bit of a hot topic a few years ago, but I know also they've a little bit faded in terms of how much people talk about them. But they're a form of discrimination. So they're one way that biases are enacted interpersonally between people and environmentally, alongside more overt discrimination or structural exclusion that we might think of. And they're defined as verbal or nonverbal communication that convey devaluation, exclusion, or invalidation of marginalized people. So here's an example of a microaggression from a qualitative piece by Masta, which focused on Native college student experiences. And the student says, when I provided an article for the class on the subject, the comments were more of, why we have to read this? Native Americans are gone. Why are we reading about them? So it might be obvious to you all, in your lived experiences why microaggressions are important to Native youth's mental health. But we also have really strong empirical evidence that more experiences of microaggressions are pretty damaging to mental health. So we have two meta-analyses of over 200 studies in which microaggressions have been reliably shown to have a negative impact on mental health, including depression, anxiety, stress levels, self-esteem, and this is across a diverse range of ethnic and racial groups as well as ages. And part of the reason microaggressions are so harmful is that they're common. So they're a pretty frequent experience that folks have. So this is not an unusual or infrequent stressor. Unfortunately, there's really limited quantitative research on Native experiences of microaggressions. As I shared in that quote a moment ago, there is some really beautiful, rich qualitative research that details some of the ways that Native college students are impacted by microaggressions and contribute to them feeling excluded, devalued, and unwelcome on college campuses. So, given that, why did we feel like we needed to develop a specific scale for Native experiences of microaggressions? Well, first, we found that there were no community developed, theoretically grounded microaggression measures for Native folks that sought to be comprehensive. We were really trying to be pretty inclusive and comprehensive in developing this scale. We also saw that most microaggression studies use what I would call pan-ethnic scales. This means that the scales are designed to be used across different marginalized racial ethnic groups. And this can be really beneficial. We can all think of examples where maybe we would want kind of this general idea of how microaggressions are affecting folks, maybe in national studies across all college students. And that can be an easier way to capture larger trends. The only problem with this is that microaggressions are based in really specific sociopolitical histories and contexts. So different groups or racial ethnic groups have been positioned differently within the US sociopolitical system. And these positions generate distinct stereotypes, narratives, and biases, which can be transferable. Some of them might be across groups, but others are not translatable. So, as one sort of goofy example, there's a stereotype that Canadians are polite in the US, right? And this stereotype is not necessarily transferable or true in terms of what people believe for other nationalities. So just because we hold a stereotype about one group doesn't mean that's going to translate to another group. And therefore, microaggressions that are expressed may not also translate across groups. Specifically, pan-ethnic microaggressions don't capture bias, stereotypes, and narratives that are based on settler colonialism, which is an incredibly important force in shaping bias against Native folks in the US today. And so this is what led us to develop a scale of Native-specific experiences of microaggressions. And I'd love to share a little bit about our scale development process and our approach. So, in line with our community partnered approach, our scale development process was multi-step and it was iterative, meaning that some of these steps were repeated until we feel like we got it right. And it took place over 9 months. So, it was a pretty extensive process. We first did a literature review to generate initial list of items and to kind of understand how we wanted to define microaggressions and look at the literature to understand how have people been speaking about stereotypes of Native people, settler colonialism, what are the different ways that oppression shows up for Native communities. We then presented this to each of our community research teams, and we spent several months meeting together to add, subtract, revise items. And this was actually a really powerful process. The students and I would sit in our meetings and talk about things that had come up for them on their campuses or in their experience. And they weren't always sure, even if it was a microaggression, or they might say, like, hey, this happened to me the other day, and I felt sick to my stomach after, and I didn't even want to go to my next class. But I didn't know that that was necessarily a microaggression, or has anyone else experienced that? So it became a way for us to also sort of identify these common experiences and name them together. After this process, we sent our item list that was pretty revised to 4 scholars with expertise in psychometrics, indigenous psychology, discrimination, and then stereotyping specifically for their review and feedback. And then based on that feedback, we did another round of revisions with the CRT. Following that, we conducted a qualitative pilot among 22 Native college students to ask for their feedback. So we asked them for open-ended feedback about any confusing wording, any items that didn't feel clear, any redundant items, or was anything missing that they felt like that really didn't represent their experiences. And then based on this pilot feedback, we made some small edits to the question wording. We actually added 2 questions based on their feedback, and then that left us with our final scale. So we then set out to test that measure among this sample of 553 Native college students nationwide. We were interested in the psychometric questions you see on the screen. Because I'm a bit of a measurement and psychometrics nerd, I'm including the technical term for each of the questions in case anyone wants to read up about them. But our first question was, does the measure capture the experiences it was designed to capture? And do the questions group together in the way that we expect? So this is otherwise known as factor structure or the model testing. And our second question was, do the items work well together and do they measure the same general experience? In other words, do they have internal consistency and reliability? Our third question was, do the scores matter for people's lives and well-being? So do the experiences that we're capturing in this scale appear to have real-world implications for the Native college students that we're surveying? And this is also known as criterion validity. And then finally, we wanted to know, does this measure tell us something we would otherwise miss? And that's pretty much the fundamental purpose of this scale. So this was really important to us, but because we wanted to know that this measure would provide new information above and beyond measures that currently exist, because that's what we're hoping to capture. So that's known as incremental validity. So to answer questions 1 and 2, does the measure capture experiences it was designed to capture? And do the items work well together? We conducted exploratory and confirmatory factor analysis. And we found that when Native college students described their experiences, it wasn't clustering around one type of discrimination, but instead we found 4 related but distinct patterns of microaggressions, which I'm going to talk through now and give some examples. So the first domain that we found was interpersonal appropriation and tokenization. So this really captures how participants felt like others treated them as a symbol, an object, a token, rather than a person interpersonally. So an example item is, in the past year, how often have you been asked to speak for all Native people? The second domain was settler colonial erasure, and that's the message that Native people don't exist, matter, or belong in the world today. This is one of the ways that settler colonialism seeks to erase and eliminate Native people. This was really exemplified in the quote that I gave at the beginning of the presentation from that Native college student. And a sample item for this domain is, in the past year, how often have you seen people act as if Native issues are not important or relevant? Authenticity and identity policing represents those experiences in which Native identity is pretty uniquely positioned within the US because it has been racialized, meaning that Native people have been made a race within the US Census and sociopolitical system. But that was not consistent with Native identity. And it leads to Native folks being consistently misidentified or misbelieved about their experience. And this goes hand in hand with appropriation as well. And a sample item for this is, have you been asked if you're a real Indigenous person by a non-Indigenous person? And finally, negative stereotypes represent those harmful beliefs and derogatory narratives that are propagated in our media, our culture, our political rhetoric. And a sample item for this would be, have you heard others assume that all Native people have casino money? So in summary, from this model and reliability testing, we found these 4 clear domains and patterns within the 32-item scale, and that the items worked well together, meaning that they had high internal reliability. Okay. Now to some of those other questions. So we also wanted to know, do the scores matter for people's lives and well-beings? And we found that when we conducted correlation analyses, that yes, more experiences of microaggressions and erasure were consistently linked to poorer mental health in both somatic symptoms, anxiety symptoms, depressive symptoms, as well as well-being among Native college students in our sample. So simply put, this means that when Native students experience more microaggressions, they report worse mental health. This isn't surprising, but I think it's important because it's not something that we've been able to represent before using a large participant pool. And finally, we wanted to know, does this measure tell us something that we would otherwise miss? And we found yes. So using hierarchical linear regression, we found that Native-specific microaggressions and erasure explained additional differences in mental health scores, even once we accounted for other experiences of discrimination. So we included 2 other discrimination scales. And after accounting for those measures of discrimination, the NIHB still explained additional differences in depression that you can see there in the brown. So 3% of depressive scores, 6% of anxiety symptoms, and then 4% of somatic symptoms. So we know that even if we're measuring experiences of discrimination generally, we're not actually capturing the full range of Native experiences of discrimination without including microaggressions. Okay. So I also wanted to share some reflections from this work on how the NIHB might inform behavioral health among Native youth across a variety of domains. So in research, in clinical care, and in our advocacy, it's really important to myself and the community research team that this work be as practical as possible and that we find ways to integrate this scale or revise the scale that are useful in behavioral health settings. So I'm also looking forward to conversation about how we can think about using this scale in strategic ways to benefit Native youth and emerging adults. But I think some initial reflections that I had is that I think this process itself demonstrates that community partnered scale development is both feasible, but also critical to truly doing translational science. I spoke about this a little bit, but the work that we were able to do as a team to develop items that truly, I hope, reflect the lived experiences of our youth and emerging adults, I could not have done that alone. I have one lived experience as one Native person. I have moved through the world with my particular experience. And so we really need youth involved in our research in order to ensure that research that we do reflects their reality. And that was never more clear to me than in this process of talking with the community research team over those months to make sure that really that we were representing them well and responsibly. The second piece that I think might be important for future research is that as we hypothesized, the psychometric testing that we did indicated that Native-specific experiences of microaggressions are related, but distinct from other measures of discrimination. So this poses the question that we can't really understand Native mental health without including Native-specific stressors. So our research needs to catch up with that and make sure that we include those stressors. We also recognize that the scale that we developed is focused on these kind of machinations of settler colonialism. So we really recommend that this scale be used in conjunction with other measures of discrimination because those other measures capture more phenotypic or appearance-based experiences of discrimination. So they capture experiences like being followed in a store because of the way you look. Obviously, those are extremely important forms of discrimination to be able to capture as well. And so we just want to add these Native-specific experiences of microaggressions to this other understanding of discrimination so that we can really have a more holistic picture. Okay. In terms of clinical care, this research demonstrates that these experiences really matter for our Native emerging adults' mental health. And so clinicians in behavioral health care settings like this one need to be able to ask about these experiences to actually understand what their patients or clients are coping with on a daily basis. Because of the erasure that Native folks experience, folks often have very little idea of what Native specific experiences of microaggressions might be. And we really can't support our clients or patients with things that we don't ask about or know about. So this might give some language to be able to provide clinicians some tools to be able to ask about these experiences. And then finally, in terms of advocacy, it's my hope that quantitative work like this can be leveraged in conjunction with this rich qualitative literature that we're starting to have to advocate for higher education policy changes that might reduce microaggression exposure. So I think that we can do that in some ways. There's some easier targets for reducing microaggression exposure in our literature, in the names of buildings, in the way that we celebrate holidays. Those are some more structural levels. But also supporting our youth in naming and being able to externalize these experiences instead of taking them on as true about themselves, so that our Native youth can cope and thrive in the face of a world that will continue, unfortunately, to offer these stressors. And then on the right, I'm sharing a quote here from Lucille Clifton, because I think it really speaks to me to the importance of being critical about what we measure in our research and thinking about how that affects our understanding of behavioral health. She says, "We cannot create what we cannot imagine." And so I think my hope is putting words to experiences that maybe youth have not been able to put words to before in research might give us the ability to imagine a world in which we can address these concerns. And I think this is maybe even more beautifully illustrated by something a participant said when we asked for feedback in our open-ended question at the end of the survey. One of our participants shared, "I really appreciate the diversity of questions in this survey. There are many questions on here that typically do not get asked about, and I think they should be talked about more." So we consistently heard from students that although these things are painful to talk about, they're dealing with them every day anyway. And so not talking about them doesn't help. And being able to name them, it can actually be healing and a powerful act of resistance in and of itself. So to close, I just want to say, Nyawe, thank you to the For Our Futures community research team. You can see all of their names up there. These are our students, and then these are the faculty and staff who we've been working with, and then also our expert reviewers and the Spencer Foundation for supporting this work. And I will pause here.
Thank you, Dr. Fetter. We do have some time for some questions or comments. So I'm going to keep a lookout in the chat, but if you feel comfortable and you want to come off mute and ask your question, I encourage that. And then Dr. Fetter, there is a question about a shareable link to the article.
Yeah, we're still writing the article. But I will share as soon as I'm able if folks are interested. And I also should have included my website link, but all of my articles are open access on my website. So anything that I've been a part of writing, you can access.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions or comments, reflections? I really appreciate this lens that you brought to the space today. I think I mentioned it in our earlier session when the Tribal Youth Advisory Council, thought of this approach of having a couple-day summit. We sent out a survey to hear from the youth who they wanted to hear from, and your name was brought up a couple of times. And I think it's just a beautiful way to bring in so many different lenses and areas of focus that are so impactful. Research, in academia, there is a place when it's done correctly, and it's done in care, and it's done with, tribes and communities leading the work, that it is really impactful. And I can see that absolutely being the case for this. So I really appreciate the work that you do, and your community research team and everybody that's involved in it, especially the youth too.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. As we're thinking about next steps, please reach out to me if any college students are on this call, want to be involved, want their voice as a part of this work. That is my greatest joy. So I am always happy to meet and talk about how to support, but also how we can really elevate and leverage your voices in this.
I do see a question from Mary.
Was there any mention by students of the diminishment of federal college funding, and how did it affect them? Yeah, so we asked questions about financial stress, as well as institutional resources that are more specific to Native college students, including like having a tribal aid liaison on campus and whether or not students were able to utilize that tribal aid liaison. So we do have information about that. We know that Native college students experience really high financial stress compared to other racial ethnic groups. We know that financial barriers to education are a primary driver of folks dropping out of college. And that's consistent in this national study. So our students report a lot of financial stress. And when they did have access to resources on campus, 77% of them were utilizing them. So one of the things that we want to get out there in terms of like action or advocacy or policy steps is what are the practices that have the most bang for your buck as a higher ed institution that will help Native college students feel supported on campus and be able to continue their education. And certainly being able to fill the gap in federal funding would be a big way that states could do that, right? Because they can have initiatives that honor their responsibility to tribes in their state and provide education to Native college students. So that's one way that we've seen it. It's a great question.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Dr. Fetter, I can't remember. Are you comfortable sharing out your slides post-event today? Is that something we can do?
Yeah,
okay, wonderful.
absolutely. Happy to.
Yeah, we'll include that in the resources as well. All right. Well, we're a little ahead of schedule, which, sometimes for me is very rare. So thank you. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and ask if our Tribal Youth Advisory Council member, Joanne, would come on and introduce our next speaker, who I'm very excited to hear from. And I will go ahead and make sure that they are here. Yep. All right, John, I'll let you take it over.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chelsea. So we are pleased to welcome Caleb Proctor, who works with the Native Connections Project Coordinator with Equita Behavioral Health. Caleb works directly with Indigenous youth through prevention, programming, wellness education, and culturally grounded community support initiatives.
So, thank you for the nice introduction. I am going to share my screen. Let's see. Here we go. All right. All right. Sio Naga Tochua Alfachki Tabadoba Chikatuwagi Ale Muskogee. Hello everyone. My name is Caleb Proctor. I am Keetoowah and Muskogee. And my name translates to Redbird Happy. And today, before I begin, I'd like to thank the National Indian Health Board and the Youth Advisory Council for the invite. And I would like to share our culture as medicine approach on our prevention team at Keetoowah Behavioral Health. So to help start us off, I'd like to mention that we are the United Keetoowah Band of Cherokee Indians in Oklahoma, and our Constitution was ratified on October 3rd, 1950, and states the council consists of 9 members elected to represent the 9 districts of the old Cherokee Nation. These 9 districts reside in Northeast Oklahoma, and the tribal headquarters is located in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. This map showcases our 9 districts, and it's important for some of the work that we do. Our prevention team is a part of Keetoowah Behavioral Health. Keetoowah Behavioral Health is a United Keetoowah Band of Cherokee Indians-owned behavioral health clinic providing compassionate, accessible mental health services to both tribal and non-tribal members across northeastern Oklahoma. Locations include the Tahlequah, which is in the Tahlequah district, Jay, which is in the Delaware district, Kansas is in the Going Snake district, Vian is in the Illinois district, and Stillwell, which is in the Flint district. This is our prevention team logo. And this was a team effort to create what culture is medicine looks like. So on the outside edges, we have 7 clans. And we're a matrilineal society as Keetoowah Cherokee people. So we want each clan represented. And then the shape creates our star, which is located on our tribal seal, tribal flag. And on the inside are 4 different aspects that is a form of medicine. On the top left, we have our physical medicine, which carries our prayers, healing. On the top right, we're ceremonial stomp dancers, and we dance around our ceremonial fire, which also carries our prayers. And at our ceremonial grounds, you have to be sober, have a good heart, good spirit, good mind when you're in these spaces. On the bottom left, we have our actual community where we all work together, because when we work together, that is medicine. And on the bottom right, we have our stick ball on nature, ball pole. And from our understanding, whenever the community is healthy, working together, and you're able to have a town, a healthy community has a ball pole. And if there's any disagreements within our members, we meet under the ball pole and discuss until we come to an agreement and bring back balance. So this logo in itself is all kinds of good medicine. Our communities collect stickers, anything that we put on our outreach material. They'll ask if they can have this logo. One of our tradition keepers asked for a copy so that she could sew us a quilt with this logo on it. So having this imagery empowers our people. So our prevention team is actually created through various SAMHSA grants and include the Native Connections, which I'm the project coordinator for. We have the Tribal Opioid Response, the TOR grant, TREE, Ensuring Hope, Treatment of Recovery, Enhancement and Expansion, and then our MAT, Methadone and Treatment grant. So this is very important for how we're able to do what we do. I pulled 2 lines from the grant I'm on, the Native Connections, and these are what I actually leverage that cultural connection to create curriculum, event planning, and this is increase awareness of the risks of substance misuse and suicide, and the available resources by hosting outreach events through the UKB jurisdiction. Next, ensure that the community's language, culture, and spirit of prevention are included in project materials, which goes on to some values that I've heard since I was a little kid. I did drift away from some of these values, but then did some healing and soul searching. And this is from Benny Smith Jigason. He had some material that I've read growing up, again, fell off and then came back to. So we have Gadugi, people coming together as one and working to help one another. Uli Skadi, Pejadaye Lansesti, treat each other's existence as sacred. And this includes treating ourselves as sacred. Then we have Dijali Gohi, EJ Hasty, live united, work as a team with one another. And we have Du Yukdan, Editlan, Dejadase Hasty, direct one another in the right way without confining or pushing. And then my Muskogee side, I was told, Yaskida, Anogejida, Afachkida, be humble, have love, and have joy. So whenever I'm in this event planning, I'm doing my best to incorporate as many of these values that I'm able to, embody these values, be the example for our youth to look up to and try their best and seeing what that looks like for themselves. These values are going to look different in everyone, but if they can live by these core values, we'll be a better community, a healthier community, happier, and sacred. So the core of this presentation is actually to discuss our prevention team hosted events, what goes into the planning process. So first, I'd like to discuss Stronger Together. So we do focus more on the youth, but we also include elders, have elder-focused events. But Stronger Together is hosted during spring break. This is to reach the youth where they're at, try to hit them, get them involved in something. So Stronger Together usually has a sports aspect in the morning. We'll do like a basketball camp, a football camp, and a softball camp. This year we did a marble game. The Cherokee people have a marble game, a field game. So we taught the kids how to play and just made them a field. I like to use this game to teach the youth about actions and consequences. So if we can start to look at our traditional activities and blend it with some evidence-based practices, we can create effective lessons. The youth are interested in our traditional activities, they're curious about their culture, and sometimes they may have little access to elders who are culturally grounded. So we want to build that bridge to address that gap. In the afternoon, after lunch, we like to have a stomp dance. So we'll teach the kids about how you're supposed to carry yourself within a ceremonial ground, carrying yourself sacred, and do our best to avoid substance misuse. And if you're really participating in these ceremonies, you have that connection to community. So we want to give them access to that. After the stomp dance, we'll play a game of stickball. And our youth, whenever they see the portable ball pole, they see us carrying the ball sticks, they get really excited and will just run up to me and just continuously ask, when can we play? When can we play? So they're excited for every little bit. So if you look through the pictures, we've got our one from this year, some stomp dance. We asked our light horse to come. and did some kind of like sobriety games with them. And we had different types of substance goggles. So it was just showcasing this is what it looks like if you are intoxicated. And some of the feedback I had heard was, I definitely don't want to be drunk. And then another one was, if I do drink, I am not driving. So, in a little activity like this, we see that there is a form of harm reduction. Next, we also host Adventure in the Trees. Now, this event is right after school's let out. Sometimes we try to target when summer school is starting, and we want to get the kids out to the river. So we hosted the Diamond Head River floats, and we'll do outside activities like, again, stickball, but we'll bring out two ball poles and play a different form, and you start to learn how to manage your emotions. Don't let them control you, just respond to them. Last year, we taught the kids how to transplant strawberries and using the metaphor of being gentle with the roots. So if we can be gentle with our own roots, other people's roots, we can reduce harm, how we show love to one another. And you can start to thrive with that. We've been incorporating a drum group. One of our teammates really loved the drum. And when he passed last year, we wanted to continue that as a new tradition for our Adventure in the Trees. So we had a drum group again this year, and just showing how working together, you can make a beautiful song, but it takes time to learn how to work together, to be on the same beat, to learn the right verses. And we're not all just Keetoowah, Cherokee here in Tahlequah. We have multiple tribes represented, and we want diverse tactics to reach as many youth that we can. We also have a storyteller. He catches snakes, so he'll show different types of snakes, and the youth are always excited for that, as well as just what to watch out for whenever they're at the river or hiking, and have them also try to work through potential fear. Last year we had a rock wall, so having the kids climb up, work through stressors, and get over them, get through them actually. And that is a skill set that is essential throughout your life. Next, we have Day of Hope. So we did do Out of the Darkness, which is a suicide awareness and prevention walk, but we shifted more towards a Day of Hope. We really want to incorporate the language into our outreach material. So on the ribbon, it says Udugi. We, as Keetoowah Cherokee people, we do have a syllabary consisting of 84 characters. So we try to have syllabary represented. And we will ask language speakers, and I'll dig through my language dictionaries, language material, and try to find the most relevant language to help create this material. And it is more than a walk, it's a community gathering. That part is essential. Again, it's more than just our tribal members that are here. So we want to create an inclusive environment where they feel safe to come and honor those they have lost to this tragedy, this epidemic. And if you look at the flyer, you see our prevention logo, and the syllables around it says Uli Skadi, Dechadaye Lansesti. Again, treat everyone's existence as sacred. We want to create a sacred environment where you feel safe, you can connect to each other, and you can ask for help, build that strength within one another. On the right, we have a variety of photos. I went ahead and included our smudge station. I tabled smudge station because it is a heavy topic. As Native people, we likely know relatives who have suffered through these situations. So we want to give them access to healing factors, protective factors. We also invite different departments, community resources. We just want to have a strong community. On the top left, that is a lot of our prevention team and Inchota team. So for anything to be successful, we have to work as a team, really relying on one another's strengths. If you focus too much on people's weaknesses, it's going to make us all weak. So that's kind of how we justify, well, what can I do best? What can they do best? So it's really just working together all the time. And each year, this walk gets bigger and bigger. People look forward to it. They want to honor those loved ones. Kanachi and Kahoot. So this one is right around Christmas time. We know that there is seasonal affective disorder. Depression rates do go higher in the wintertime. So you want to have a variety of events that can bring community together. And kanachi is a traditional food that we ate throughout the winter. So you'd spend the fall collecting hickory nuts and then let them dry out a little bit. And then the picture on the bottom right is a canon. It's a big mortar and pestle. So you'd crack the nuts, mash them until it's almost a paste, and then you either mix it with hominy or rice. So the picture above that is one of our tradition keepers. She's really involved with our team, really helpful, always excited to see everyone. And she's the one that was making the quilt for us. But she wanted to share the kanachi recipe she had and do a demonstration for everyone. On the top left is a lot of our tribal members, youth, elders, parents participating in a Kahoot game. And it's our effort in bridging that gap between the youth and the elders. So we wanted to have that little pun, K and K, to build that bridge. So we had created like a Christmas Kahoot, a behavioral health Kahoot, and then we created a cultural Kahoot. So a lot of our events, we taught about wild onions, which is a traditional food. We taught about stickball, marbles, some language, some history, and the youth learned a lot with the feedback we got from the Kahoot. We had a variety of coloring pages and our youth council, before they were youth council, but our youth that were volunteering, really engaged, and it's inspiring, empowering. On the bottom left, we have a lot of our prevention team sitting around another prevention team who cosplayed as Santa. The tribal opioid response, but the whole prevention team really works together next on our stickball pole raising. On the left side, this is our most recent ball pole raising. And that flyer, that poster says Amahi, and that means where the salt lives. So that's our saline district. So we try to put a ball pole in each of our 9 districts so that the community has a place to go. If they're having a family gathering, they have something to do, a safe place to do it at. And we try to bring the people together, You will see in that little photo on the top right of that picture is how many's there from that one district. So they enjoy a meal, fellowship, share stories, the ball pole raising. You can see right under that picture is all of us working together to raise it. So while we'll have our prevention team doing a lot of it, we rely on the community itself to help get it done. On the right side is our event recap. So if you see the event recap, it helps with our reports. It shows what we're doing in our community. So it does include our Facebook page, post on there. We invite tradition keepers to help do cultural crafts, tell stories, and again, create fellowship and community. We also host elder days. We try to have these quarterly to bring the elders together, let them discuss what community used to look like, how did they address anything in behavioral health, how did they check on one another, is there anything that they want to bring back on like hog fries in the left photo at the bottom. A lot of elders remember always gathering at the churches, at the ceremonial grounds, community gatherings. They would always have food. Food brings the people together. And through that, we also let them have a conversation. A lot of times they'll speak in the language, so we'll just sit there and listen, try to catch what we can, and the people who can translate it for us are really essential in that. And we'd like to record those discussions and see what gaps we need to address as a team. On the right side is our more recent Elder Day. It was held on Valentine's Day. So we included intimate partner violence, but also just loving one another. We started to play chair volleyball with the elders, showed them some stretches they could do while sitting at home, and they really enjoyed this. You can see the competitive nature that they haven't been able to act on in a long time. So they were competing, wanting more rounds. And another thing that we do is after we get through all the harder discussions, harder work, we let them do an elder bingo. A lot of them miss paper bingo, so we'll have prizes from our tribal museum. Sometimes the team and I will make baskets or some kind of gift that can be a prize for them. So they get competitive there. So we like to raise their heart rate in a healthy way. And then our prevention team also teaches life skills. I'm in two schools. Marcella on the right's in two schools. We got 3 or 4 other schools that we're in consistently. And that's what makes, in my perspective and opinion, our prevention team so we work well together. We got a bunch of methods of teaching to reach a variety of students. If they're more artsy, they're interested in culture, history, crafts. Me and a couple others can work together to create that lesson to reach those youth. But we also have people who have coached on our team, so we can use sports or some empowering motivational approach in that way to build these life skills in our youth. So in this little post on the left side is me teaching the medicine wheel of self-care from Healthy Native Youth. And it has the mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual aspects within ourselves. So we have red, yellow, white, black, and each of those represent the different parts of ourself. And we're making a bracelet, and I consider it like a form of accountability tool so that they can see if there's any gaps in their self-care they're not addressing. And then I also like to dive into communal care and societal care whenever we're talking about the self-care. So we need to have that holistic approach in our behavioral health and outreach. On the right side, Marcella works with youth and elders. She's a retired teacher, has a lot of skills and knowledge. So she's doing a cornhole activity, keeps everyone interested, has funny stories too. So we really like to work together on creating these lessons and crafts. And then this one is a teammate, Arlo. He does wellness throughout the ring. So he uses boxing, talks kids through different life skill lessons while giving them something productive, a productive outlet to process that energy they may be feeling. And this is not all our life skills. We do host a class here at our offices on Tuesdays. So the kids that can make it, we do a blend of everyone's teaching styles. The French team has different teachers. So we just find how we can reach those specific youth during that day to teach that specific lesson. Then we have our UKB Youth Council. We haven't had a youth council for the United Keetoowah Band in a while. So this is our first youth council again. We are taking them to Unity. They do volunteer for our outreach events. They ask us questions constantly, and that shows that there is an interest. So we want to build these leaders up, give them all the tools, all the tips that we wish we had, especially if we was going through high school and college. So I want to give them all the shortcuts possible. Marcella sewed up their ribbon skirts and ribbon shirts that they're wearing on stage. So just be watching for them. We're going to build them up. They already have really great ideas. They want to create a community garden, and we just got to help them out. And then the first week of October weekend, we help out with the Keetoowah celebration. This is last year's, so we do a table. We'll get surveys from the tribal members and see what gaps we need to address, what's working, what's not working, and be adaptable, be fluid in our outreach. If we're doing what we think the community needs without having their input, they're going to be unengaged. They're not going to show up. They're not going to care. And then our work becomes useless. So we also focus on a strengths-based approach. So this last year we had mums for people who did the survey. If you take care of a plant, talk good to the plant, talk good to yourself, it becomes a muscle. The more you work on it, the more you can rewire your brain, address that generational and historical trauma, and start to incorporate generational healing. Be the example. Do we have any questions? Oh,
Thank you so much, Caleb. Here we go. I'm going to encourage folks to make comments or questions in the chat. I just wanted to thank you, Caleb, for your contribution today and ultimately the lives that you're influencing in your community. It's super inspiring. My tupa, or my grandmother, told me something when I was young, and it's kind of like stayed with me throughout my whole life, and it really hones in on how I move within public health in my work and in community. And it's that our communities we have our solutions. We know our solutions. And I think that is it's just evident in what you shared today that your community, your people, they have the solutions. And I think it's really beautiful that you said it. I was capturing it in my head, but you said, if you focus on someone's weakness, everybody becomes weak. And having that protective factor, those strength-based approaches, lifting one another up, that's how change is created and how it's sustained for our people. And so I just really commend that. The last thing I wanted to note as a mom of three daughters is I saw in some of the flyers how young you open up your programming to. Sometimes you say youth, right? And you think those teenage years, and having those ages, even as young as 7 or 8, I saw in the flyers, that is such an important time in a young child's life and in the space in which they then kind of form into who they can be as a teenager, as a young adult. And so I really appreciated seeing that. That's not something that I always see in my community. It's usually older youth. And so I just really commend that. And I'm going to take a look at the chat. If you see any questions, please feel free to answer them. But I just really wanted to thank you for that presentation. Lots of thank yous. Homegrown tribal solutions.
And I would like to share that we do more community events, but I wanted everything to fit within our time frame. We're still working on events on the back end, planning, and bringing in different elders, youth, community resources to have a really holistic outreach. Mm.
Are there any questions for Caleb? Do you have a program Facebook page to follow?
Yeah, our Keetoowah Behavioral Health Facebook page showcases a lot of our events, and we always try to keep people informed, share our flyers. Sometimes the team and I will make a little video for an advertisement. So we try to keep humor, and we know laughter is medicine. So we try to be humorous, strengths-based approach, and our behavioral health.
Caleb, I think there's a couple of questions about maybe how people can get a hold of you to maybe discuss collaboration opportunities.
Yeah, we have our Keetoowah Behavioral Health Facebook, and then I'm involved on social media. So if you wanted to have questions for me, I can share resources on social media. So that's how I was invited on this to
That
this health
is.
summit. It's a good way
I
to
can
get a hold of me.
attest. He responds.
And then Brittany also shared my email. So if you wanted to reach out to our team, a lot of our emails are like that. I can share information through that pathway. We got to utilize these tools.
So Martha posted a comment about loving your intervention strategies. There's so many ideas. What or how would you suggest to start an intervention?
Intervention. You want to build a connection. So it really depends on the connection that individual may need. So based off their interest, have a way for them to come through the door. and then build a relationship with these kids. And it's hard to trust others, especially when you're struggling. So build that relationship, and as they feel safer, um, they can start to share, um, and be willing to listen. We can't rush healing within ourselves, so how can we expect another to rush their healing? If they're building up the strength to ask for help, um, give them the space to do that and reassure them. Um, and whenever they're ready, you'll be the person they rely on. And if they rely on you, don't leave them hanging. That's one of the scary things about therapy is if you go over your time limit, you don't want to be left hanging with the open soul wound, and then you having to address that on your own. And if you don't have the toolkit to address that trauma, to get to healing, um, it can get scary. So we want to build a toolkit for everyone. And if they can take care of themselves within that medicine wheel of self-care, they can learn how to take care of one another because they may rely on their peers more than they do um, people they don't trust or an authority figure. So let them build their community as we build our community because they are part of our community, and then they can work together. I want strong youth to rely on one another, and we need strong adults to be that role model, embody these lessons that we want to pass on. Because if not, it can be forgotten, and that terrifies me.
Thank you, Caleb. Beautifully said. There was a question by someone around, do you do any work with disabled youth?
We try to have an inclusive environment as best as possible. We do have like extravaganza we help host, and that's a Easter egg hunt. So to help with a noisy environment, we do have a sensory friendly category, so that they're away from a big microphone, a huge crowd, so that they're not overstimulated. We try to address dietary restrictions. We know alpha-gal is common in our communities now, so we try to address those. Stay aware of best practices and engaging in these different parts of our community, and do our best to plan around those best practices. But you can only plan so much. So a lot of times when you have those skills, you just have to respond as best as you can and just be present.
Thank you. Lindsay would like to know, how do you practice self-care? That's always the fun one when you get asked that, right?
Yeah. So I do beadwork, make baskets, pottery, write poetry, do nature walks, um, hang out with people I really trust, um, confide in them, share stories, go to ceremony, go to water. I pray a lot, um, trying my best to create laughter wherever I'm at, so that lowers my guard to build trust as well as it does for others. Um, I do my best in my self-care. I read a lot, but I also read a lot of things that stress me out, but I need that so that I'm aware of what's going on and I can plan around harm reduction and risk management. So for like, I'll stress myself out, but it's because I care.
Thank you. There's a question about, how has the community discussed or addressed generational or historical trauma?
The way I like to look at it is through that strengths-based approach. I think if we provide the opportunity and platform for these activities to happen, that historical trauma is being addressed by doing what was made illegal until 1978 with the American Indian Religious Freedom Act. So, and we do talking circles. We try to have that for the elders. That's why they have their time frame to have that discussion on what we can do as a prevention team. And if not much is being done, what can we do as a team to create that healing space? And as we work through those soul wounds, unpack that trauma that's been unaddressed. Um, what are we doing to empower them? Because we did make it through all these traumatic events, and there are still traumatic events occurring in the current moment. So we need these protective factors. Um, yeah, so just mm. It's complex. Things are happening, things have happened. So we're having to ride through constant cycles of grief and trauma as individuals, as a community, as a society, that we really need all these protective factors to surround us so that whenever we do finally become weak and we can't carry that weight, we trust others to help us with that. And if you're always on the front line, it can create empathy burnout or injustice burnout, just always advocating. We need strong community members to share that load. And if we can trust one another within the society to have that, to me, that starts to address that historical trauma.
Well said. Thank you. Are there any other questions for Caleb? Let me just see what other comments have been made. Folks talking about cultural sensitivity trainings within school districts, well varieties, mending broken hearts has been approached. I see some people saying that they have to practice self-care better. They're telling other people to.
Right, hold ourselves accountable to our self-care. We can't promote
Yes,
it all the time,
yes,
not do it ourselves.
exactly. We all need that support. Well, at this time, I think, unless there are any other questions, I'm going to share my screen quickly. And I want to, can everybody see that? Okay, wonderful. So what I'm hoping that we could do is I'm going to stop our recording. And let's see here. So I want to stop our recording. I want to allow a little bit of time since we are finishing up a little early, just for any kind of share out that anybody has, similar to what we did before lunch. No pressure, maybe some takeaways from the day. And then after we do that, I'm going to ask our elder, Chris Tallbear, to close us out in prayer and some good words. But before I do that, I just want everybody to take a look at the screen. This is a look at day 2 tomorrow. I've had a couple people message me and say, I didn't know this was 2 days. It is 2 days. So tomorrow, same time frame, same schedule, same link. So if you joined a link and you have that from your calendar invite, it's the same exact link. We're really excited to have additional speakers that are going to talk about various topics. We have Dr. Damian Chase Begay, Dr. Fowler, Liz Best, Devin Hedress, Frank Waln, and also having Lacey and Chris come back to open us up and close us for the day tomorrow. So with that being said, I'm going to pause our recording.